All right, folks, Bootsy Greenwood here, talking Tufti. Please check me out on Patreon. Patreon is a place where I can connect a little bit better than YouTube, and I have free stuff on there. I'm not asking for money. Flying Squid Comedy, I mean, I am asking for money, but you know, not too much. Flying Squid Comedy, we're doing comedy over there, YouTube. We're doing live streams and stuff, so check that out. You can follow me at Bootsy Greenwood all over the place. We're talking Tufti, guys. This book is great. It's one of my favorite books ever written. It's just kind of written weird, you know. And since I can't read it to you, we can talk about it. So I thought, you know, I had promised a couple of friends that I would break this down a little bit, and I've even seen a couple comments. So hopefully this is helpful. Ask questions, ask away. We'll get into it. It's definitely a little bit trippy, but you're going to see that all these books are saying all the same stuff. You know, they're going to see all these reflections, you know, like the Kabbalion, you know, like how every natural law reflects itself. You see all these natural laws in here. It's just a different metaphor. Everything's just a different metaphor. That's all it is. One bombshell that she drops in here is, if your attention is not your own, your soul is not your own. It's pretty heavy, you know. But it has a lot to do with Outwitting the Devil, speaking of other books. Now, in Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill talks to Satan. That's the premise of the book. And what Satan says is that he owns 98 out of 100 of men's minds. And the way that he does that is that he basically preys upon people's thoughts, and they become a loop. And that it becomes what he calls the law of hypnotic rhythm, where these people never challenge their own thought. They never think for themselves, basically. And so thus, he has his hold on them. That's the premise of that book. I might be making a series on that. It's one of my favorite books ever. He says he has 98 out of 100 people's minds. 98 out of 100 people don't think for themselves and are what Tufti refers to as mannequins, right? Dream mannequins. Like if you're in a dream and you go up to somebody and you're like, yo, who are you? They wouldn't know how to answer that question other than their role. That's how most of us live, right? In reality, we're not aware, we're not self-aware like we talked about in the last video. That self-awareness will set you apart. It will turn you into a firefly in a land of shadows, it says. And people will be drawn to you, you know, just because of that self-awareness. And this is something that we all deserve. It's our birthright, right? To have self-awareness and to feel in touch with ourselves, like our truer self, you know? It's definitely something that's very important, I think. The script. All right, so now we're getting into all these film terms. Now, I said in the last video, we couldn't make this metaphor about using film if life wasn't like it. And life is very much like a film. And that's why we like film so much as people. They're beautiful. They are like a micro of the macro, right? So it's pretty neat. So a script. Now, a script is, if you don't know, something that somebody writes and then they make a movie based on this script. So this script represents determinism, right? It represents things going this particular certain way. If everyone was asleep, no one was taking any action, no one was thinking for themselves, no one was creating their own reality, then there would be this sleepy reality that would just go on by itself. I believe it would be a pretty totalitarian type of reality, Orwellian, and it would just be, you know, these things that just naturally fall in order over time. It would be the macro of this idea from Outwitting the Devil, where people are basically just sleepwalking through life. There's no challenge to anything. There's no difference. It's just a very mundane, repetitive, predictable reality. That's what the script is. You know, you're subject to it as long as you're asleep. So have you ever felt, you know, just like, oh, I can't do that because of that? I know I have. Like, I can't do this because of that, and I can't do this. I feel trapped, right? You feel trapped. You feel like a character in a movie, and that's why. It's because of this reason right here. You are basically, you have to obey the script. You are basically, essentially a dream character. You know, you are living in this reality, and there's really nothing you can do about it. You don't have any power. You don't feel. You don't have self-awareness in this movie. You are just basically being lived, right? You are not breathing, you're being breathed. You're not writing, you're being written. You are a character. So how do we fix this? Well, attention again, right? Talking about all the time, attention. Waking up, waking up, waking up. Repetition, 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 repetition. Always ask yourself where you are. Ask yourself if you're dreaming. This is really good. If you're a lucid dreamer or something like that, I think that can be very helpful for navigating reality in waking reality as well. And I know the two things, they're tied together. There's power there, right? Like I said in the last video, I'm not a big dreamer, but I do know people who are. And so if you are, I encourage you to use that as a tool. That's really cool and important that you can do that. The dream world's virtual, but it's not as important as waking up in physical reality. This is a third dimensional world. This is what we're dealing with here. This is this is real. And then beyond that, every reality exists in the dream space. Again, if you're a dreamer, use that tool. Please, 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 please. And then tell me how cool it is. I want to hear all about it. But, you know, like I said, I'm not going to be able to teach that very well. So that's not me. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Nobody wants to hear this. But we're always going to fall into this outer screen or internal screen, internal awareness, external awareness, always, always, always falling out and in of consciousness. It's going to happen. Don't be impatient with yourself. Every time you wake up, you deserve a treat. You deserve a positive reinforcement for that. Every time you wake up, realize that you've done it and tell yourself good job, right? Now, once you start to figure this out and you become aware in the dream, remember that you're not better or worse than anybody. You were ready for this information, it came to you, and now you get the opportunity to put it into practice. That's amazing. You should be incredibly grateful for that, but just remember, don't be superior. You're not any better than anybody else. You found out about this, and it was time, and there you go. And not everybody is going to find out about this lifetime, or even who knows how many lifetimes, or what's beyond this. I'm so curious, but I don't, I'm not in a hurry to know. She says, learn to track your attention and also pretend to be asleep. You know, don't come at people like you know more than they do, because it's not going to help anybody, right? It's just not. It's going to make you look like an asshole, and it's going to make them feel threatened, honestly. So be a firefly in the shadows. Try and exude your self-awareness and your ability to be a complete and beautiful human and encapsulate love and all of those things, and just beam that out and just give that away for free, and people will ask you. And then at that point you say, oh, well, actually, you know, I've read a few books, and, you know, there's some interesting principles that I've tried out, and I feel like maybe this is what's, you know, allowed me to have a little bit more perspective or whatever. Because, again, there's a clever idea that, you know, if you do this, or, you know, you'll get a clip on the ear, as she says. You know, in transurfing, it's a flick on the nose, you know. But pride goes before a fall, it says in the Bible as well. Okay, let's talk about the film roll. The film roll represents infinity. It represents everything that is, was, or ever will be. The script is determined, right? The script is this thing, it's already been written, right? But the film rolls, there are multiple of. And we can go off into a different film roll as we continue on. And that we'll get more back into the script too, because there's adjustments that can be made, but this represents infinity. It's just a metaphor, right? It's the dream space, but it's also not 100% predictable. She talks about how, like, psychics and stuff can't predict the future with 100% certainty because there are so many variables, and we could slide to a very similar life track or film roll. Film roll is a life track, if you're familiar with transurfing, that's close by. And it might be that they predicted the whole thing wrong, but it's still, you know, relatively close by. So we would go into this other reality over here, and it's a little bit different. So not 100% predictable with certainty. They say that they actually do pretty well as far as predicting things go. And you got to ask yourself, how much influence do you have on that once you hear the prediction? Anyway, you are the same soul over and over, okay? Reincarnation, again and again and again. We hear this a lot. You are the same soul over and over and over and over again. So here we are. I'm learning some sort of lesson. You're learning some sort of lesson here. And so that doesn't give you a right. We don't know, like, maybe this is like clown college, you know? We're just in clown college, and we just got to keep learning lessons until we finally, make the cut, and we become goofballs and somehow ascend out of this, this very finite reality that we find ourselves in, and go to the next sort of thing, potentially, or maybe we come back and learn again and again and again. Who knows? But the point being, you are the same attention. So learning your attention, learning who you are, it should be something that's very much first nature to you, more than second nature. So what we want to learn to do is compose. Okay, we want to create reality in the future instead of in the current frame. Most of us are fighting in the current frame, just like I said in the last video. We can't change the past or the present. All of the causes and effects, like we talked about in the Kabbalion, lead up to create this current present that we're in. We're not escaping this. Nothing we can do can get us out of this. Now we can take our attention and use it to build a better future and co-create that as an individual and as a member of society. We can do that. And that is actually very useful and helpful because the future is not determined yet. Even if it kind of is, it's still not. There's not 100% predictability in the future. Now we can push and use our will and start to begin to create a better reality in the future from the present. But we can't create a better present in the present. We can't change the past. And in fact, each and every one of those potential pasts still exists in this film roll archive too. So when we start to do release exercises, basically what we're doing is we're shifting our relationship to reality and actually bending that reality so that it's not as traumatic for us anymore. So it's actually technically a different reality in the past as well. Anyway, or a variation thereof. I don't want to get too weird. But where is your attention? Okay, this is what is everything right now. Where is your attention? Your attention is your tool. It's your tool to build the future. It's your tool to suffer in the present. It's your tool to live in the past. It's up to you to use your attention. And so hopefully we all have good friends. I got a Marco Polo today from my friend Steph that totally changed the outcome of my day. I could have just gone back to bed and just been like, ugh, this is just bleh. But instead, I'm making this video series today. So thank you for the inspiration. We all fall in and out of consciousness. Just become aware of it. And let's try and surround ourselves with people who can help us to stay positive in these times. Not ignorant. I want to make that very clear. Positive, not ignorant. Because there's always, as we're going to learn from Tufti, there's always an advantage in every situation. And I can talk about some things that I've been through in the past several months that looked like they would definitely be disadvantaged, but I was able to keep my wits about me a little bit, not even that well, but well enough to actually make a much better reality for myself. So that's very fortunate, and that's all because I blindly followed these principles, not necessarily knowing that whether or not they would work out, but in fact they have. This is some really interesting stuff, and it's a very deep book. But just know the simple, most brilliant point of this book is that all you are is attention. So that power is really all you've got. It's important, and we're going to learn how to use it. We're going to learn how to split it, and hopefully we can get to work as masons, as builders of the earth with our minds, and start making some significant differences here. Every opportunity has an advantage in it. It doesn't mean that it's advantageous, like sometimes reality just sucks. But within every single situation, there is an opportunity. And so I challenge you all to try and find it, work with me, let's find it. I believe that it exists. And I know that it does, because every infinite reality does exist. So it's about figuring out how to navigate there, and we can do that together. We're more powerful. Anyway, patreon.com/BootsyGreenwood, Gumroad.com. I've got some meditations and stuff on Gumroad. Please check that out, gumroad.com/BootsyGreenwood. And I will be hopefully collaborating with some other folks here soon. I need to reach out and get busy. You guys Thanks so much. Ask any questions and comments, and we'll talk to you next time.